Good afternoon, everybody. So I think everybody has a general feel of what an athletics director at the university does, but I don't know how much time you spend to think about the complexity of it. The NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, is a huge organization with a really big mission, and frankly, it's big business. And so an athletic director at a major university is essentially running a giant business. There are customers in terms of all the folks who attend the events. There's a tremendous amount of fundraising that has to go on to support the mission. The compliance for NCAA eligibility is significant. I would imagine it approaches something like the white pages in terms of how thick that compliance book is. And at the very core of it, it's about the student athlete. And so the reason that I invited Director Coyle to speak with us today is because I think that he has, from the very beginning, been very clear about his commitment to the student athlete, right? And making sure that the mission of the university, which is to educate young people and prepare them for future careers, is being evidenced in the work that the athletics department does. And it is core to, I think, the work that he does there. So when I invited him, I asked him to talk about especially the emphasis on academics and how it drives his work serving the university. I'll let him do his bio, knowing the kind of person that Mark is. He doesn't want me to sit here and tell you about everything that he's done in the past anyway, because he'd like to talk to you about the success they're having and where they're going as an institution. Mark, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Jamie, and appreciate the invitation. When I had a chance to see Jamie at one of our basketball games, and he had talked to me about coming out to this group, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come out here and speak. And you know, I tell people, and you have to bear with me, I am the shyest athletic director in America. Mark has heard this before because Mark has heard me speak several times, but I truly am one of the shyest people in the world. And my wife goes, how do you do this for a living? So bear with me as I get to the beginning of the speech, and then I'll be fine, and we'll kind of go through what I want to talk to you about. But a couple things I want to point out first. I think it's important that you understand who I am and how I got here. And just a quick background, I got here 3 years ago. I was the athletic director at Syracuse University for a year. And at my time at Syracuse, we had great success. We had 5 ACC championships. We had 2 national championships. Both men's basketball and women's basketball went to the Final Four, and our men's soccer team went to the Final Four. So we had a lot of success, and we were very fortunate and blessed to be there. Prior to that, I was the athletic director at Boise State University. I was the AD at Boise State for almost 4 years. My time at Boise State, we won a Fiesta Bowl, which was awesome. I think we won 12 conference championships, and what I'm most proud of my time at Boise State is 17 of our 18 teams posted their highest grade point average that they ever posted. And prior to that, before becoming the athletic director at Boise State, I was the deputy athletics director at the University of Kentucky. Spent almost 7 years at Kentucky, started out in fundraising and worked my way up to the number 2 person. When I left Kentucky, I oversaw men's basketball, football, volleyball, and some other programs, and worked very closely with running the day-to-day operations of the department. And from 2001 to 2005, I worked at the University of Minnesota. I was the director of marketing. I was hired by Tom Moe when the departments were split. The departments merged after my first year, and I was then retained by Joel Maturi and had a chance to work with him for a few years. So that's a quick snapshot of my background. And when you hear me talk about academics, I'm a product of Division III athletics. I went to Drake University. I had a chance to play football down there. With all due respect to kickers, I was not the kicker. I was a wide receiver. People say you were a kicker because you're so tiny, but I was a wide receiver and had a wonderful experience down there. And I truly believe that the most important thing that we give our students is a degree from a world-class institution. And we talk about that every day in our building. So I just want to go through and give you a quick snapshot of who we are and what we're trying to do, and then I'll make sure I open up for some questions at the end of the presentation. Some key facts about our program. We have 25 programs. So obviously you hear about football, you hear about men's hockey, men's basketball, women's basketball, but we have 25 programs that we sponsor at the University of Minnesota. We have 700 plus student athletes. So we're a big department. We have 275 full-time employees. So when you sit down and think about between these 700 student athletes, the 275 full-time employees. When you bring in our part-time employees and the people that help out with game days, that goes to another 900 people. So we're a big, big operation, and obviously a very visible operation. Our FY19 operating budget is $121 million. That is a lot of money, $121 million. But if you go back to the very first thing I told you, 25 programs, we offer the fourth most number of sports in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and then Minnesota with respect to the number of sports we offer. Our budget of $121 million ranks 8th in the conference. So we tell our coaches, go out and beat Michigan, go out and beat Ohio State, go out and beat Wisconsin, go beat Penn State. Their budgets are all much bigger than ours and much higher than ours. And so that's on us to creatively grow our revenue streams to make sure that we can support all 275 full-time employees, all student athletes, and our 25 programs at the highest level. Our students, we've had 10 straight semesters of a 3.2 or higher grade point average. That is unheard of. This past fall, we had a 3.28, our highest grade point that we've ever had in department history. Our football program, people look at our football program, incredibly, incredibly visible, a 3.2 grade point average. They're doing it the right way, very phenomenal. But all of our programs, this past spring, every one of our 25 programs was above a 3.0. We take great, great pride in that. We've had 5 straight years as the top public school for student-athlete academic performance. So again, we are the top public school, Duke, Stanford, Notre Dame, Minnesota. So we're doing it right academically. We're very proud of that. We have a 93% graduation success rate. So again, our student athletes are coming, they're competing at a high level, and they're graduating from a world-class institution. If you look at our athletes, we finished last year 19th in the country in the Learfield Directors Cup. And what the Learfield Directors Cup is, that measures all of your programs against all Division I programs across the country. So we finished, there's over 360 Division I programs, and we finished 19th in the country with respect to overall athletic success on the fields. We've won 19 conference team titles since the start of 2015 and 16. We've won 2 conference championships this fall in volleyball and women's soccer. We've had 57 different All-Americans this past year. We haven't obviously gone through this year, but last year we had 57 All-Americans. We continue to evolve, and I've learned early on that anytime I speak publicly, I need to show a picture of Lindsay. So I always show a picture of Lindsay, but we continue to evolve and we continue to change. And I'm not going to lie to you, I've been here 3 years. It has not been an easy 3 years. Think about what's gone on in our department over the past 3 years. But I promise you we're trying every day to be very intentional in the people we hire. We're trying to be very consistent in what we're laying out of who we want to be, how we want to do things, and we're being very focused on what we're trying to do. And when I talk about me being here, in 2.5 years, we have hired 6 head coaches. That is unheard of. We've had to hire 6 head coaches in 2.5 years. I remind people, I am the 4th athletic director at the University of Minnesota since 2012. So think about that, a $121 million operation, 275 full-time staff, over 700 student athletes. You're in the paper and the media every day. I'm the 4th person to stand up in front of groups like you and say, hey, believe in what we're doing. Believe in what we're trying to do and how we're trying to make special things happen. So we've been through a lot of transition, but we feel like we have a very, very bright future. And Jamie and I were talking about this at lunch. One of the big things that has changed our department is Athleticss Village. We opened this up a year ago. Athleticss Village is a $166 million facility that houses all of our student athletes. One of the unintended consequences of that facility is we are all together now, so we can all spend time with each other. I tell people, and you're all invited, if you're having a bad day, come have lunch at our Athleticss Village, in our nutrition center. You see volleyball players sitting with wrestlers. You see football players sitting with cross-country kids. You see women's hockey players sitting with gymnasts. It's awesome to see the interaction in our department. But we feel like we have a bright, bright future. I talk about hiring the 6 head coaches. Obviously, we hired Lindsay Whalen, and I can tell you with complete honesty, I completely underestimated the impact that would have on our program. I completely misplayed that. I tell the story, anytime you have to go through a coaching search and you're the athletic director, you meet with your team right away. And I told the team that we would move quickly, we'd find the best coach for our program. And I brought the team back together 2-3 days later, and I'm in their locker room, and I tell them, hey, I found your head coach, and you're nervous because you want to make sure that they embrace this new coach, this new person. And when we introduced Lindsay, after they got done hugging her, they're hugging me, they're so excited. And I walk out, and my media relations person says, boss, this is blowing up on social media. And I'm like, what are you talking? He's like, no, it is blowing up in a good way. Everybody's talking about this. But again, we were very intentional when we hired Lindsay. PJ Fleck, people say, you hired PJ Fleck. Jamie and I were just talking about this. I wish you could spend time with PJ Fleck, and we need to do a better job so people can see him when it's not on Saturday and it's not game day. I talk about our football team. They've had the highest grade point average each semester he's been here. Every one of our football student athletes goes to class with a collared shirt on. They must sit in the first 2 rows. If they're late to class, they write a note to apologize. We go to the bowl game in Detroit this year. We were invited to play in the Quick Lanes Bowl in Detroit. And I get to Detroit with the team on December 22nd. And one of the bowl people come up to me and they say, hey, I have to tell you how surprised we were to get a handwritten note from everyone on the football team thanking them for inviting us to play in the game in Detroit. Think about that for a second. 110 kids wrote a thank you note to board members of a bowl game in Detroit thanking them for letting us play in the game. Our custodians pop into my office a few weeks ago, a month ago now. Our football team wrote every custodian a note thanking them for cleaning their building each day. Again, the little things that people don't talk about. So again, we hired Bob Motzko, our hockey coach. We're going through a tough hockey season right now. We're battling hard. The kids are playing hard, but we're not having the wins we want to have. St. Cloud is #1 in the country. There's a reason why they're #1 in the country. They had really good coaching. Bob will get this program where we all want to go. But again, we try to be very intentional. We feel like we have a bright future. Our guiding principles. So when I talk and I joke with people, you talk about the theater. So I am a 4-year undergrad at Drake English major. 4 years of Shakespeare. I tell people I'm the only athletic director in America with 4 years of Shakespeare. True story. I'm supposed to be a high school English teacher, and somehow I ended up doing this for a living. But this is what we're doing. But what we talked about when I got to Minnesota was I felt like we had to clearly establish some guiding principles of who are we going to be. And I told the staff, this is my expectation. I worked closely with them so they understood what we were going to be about. And I promise you, if you talk to our head coaches, if you talk to our staff, if you talk to your student athletes, they will tell you, Mr. Coyle talks about this every day. And it's very important to me. But our guiding principles are simple. We talk about action. Talk is cheap. We are defined by our actions. I can stand up here and tell you how great we are and all the great things we're doing academically, all the great things we're doing athletically, but you'll find out real quick if I'm full of crap or not, if we don't do things the right way, right? So we are defined by our actions, and we all clearly understand that. And the lesson I've learned most since I've been back in Minnesota is doing it right matters in the state of Minnesota. It matters here, and we're going to do it the right way. We talk about honesty, and I'll give you a true story with this honesty. That used to say transparency, and I learned a lesson. I can't always be transparent. When we're dealing with a student-athlete issue or a personnel issue, I can't stand up at a press conference and tell you what that person did or how we got to where we got. And my staff came back to me and they said, hey, Coyle, you look like a moron when you stand up there and say transparency. So we talk about honesty. And what I can tell all of you, what I can tell my staff, our student-athletes is, we will always be honest with you. And if I can't tell you something because it's a personnel matter, a student-athlete matter, I will tell you I can't tell you that. But we'll be honest with each other. I tell people all the time, I'm the least confrontational person in the world. Ask my wife, I have never won an argument, have never won one. But what I've learned is if you're honest with each other, you eliminate a lot of the drama. So we'll be incredibly truthful and incredibly honest with each other. We talk about humility. This is the most important one to me. And I got this from Chris Peterson. Chris Peterson, who's now the head football coach at Washington. He and I had a chance to work together when I was the athletic director at Boise State. He was our head football coach there. But how we define humility is low ego, high output. It's what this organization's about. You want to serve and help others. But we talk all the time. We are going to be about low ego and high output. I love to surround myself with people like that. I love to be around people who have that low ego and that high output. And finally, we talk about innovation. And what I simply mean by innovation are two things. First, we have to maximize our resources. We're a $121 million budget. We need to beat Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Penn State. That means we better be innovative in how we maximize our resources to make sure we get the most out of every dollar that we've been blessed with to provide a great experience and compete at a high level. At the same time, we have to look at our personnel. How can we maximize our personnel and put people in the right situations? I've learned a long time ago, if you put people in the right spot, it's amazing what we can do. When they have low ego, we're honest, and we're defined by our actions. So we talk about we want to be innovative and creative. We also talk about our core values. And what I simply mean by our core values are, first, genuine care and concern for others. The golden rule. It's not rocket science. Let's treat others how we want to be treated. Athletic excellence. I made this very clear to President Coyle when he hired me 3 years ago. I made this very clear to the board when they hired me 3 years ago. I did not come here to be 500. I hate losing. I am a nerd. Look at me, I get it. But I'm a competitive nerd. I've been very, very blessed. You win a Fiesta Bowl at Boise State, you want to get back. You go to a Final Four when you're at Kentucky, you go to a Final Four when you're at Syracuse, you want to get back. All right? I want to compete at a high level. 1967, last time football did it. 1982, men's basketball. Think about that. Your two biggest sports, 1967, 1982. I love that challenge. We're going to do everything we can to compete at a high level in those sports. Men's hockey, 2003, haven't won a national championship since then. That program should be winning championships at the highest level. Those are things we're going to focus on. You look at our Olympic sports, we have great, great success. Our volleyball program, back-to-back Final Fours, soccer program, 3 Big Ten championships, women's hockey's ranked #1 in the country, swimming and diving, gymnastics, all ranked. So our Olympic programs are doing phenomenal. We need to get our revenue sports to do some special things. I talk about academic excellence. I bragged about our grade point average, 3.28. We're the highest rated public school in the country. We're doing it well there. We want to continue to get better there. We want to embrace diversity. We are the most diverse group on campus. We have student athletes from 57 different countries all over the world. We think that is a strength. How can we use that strength to make us stronger, to make us better? And authentic communication, and how I describe authentic communication is simply this. We need to listen to people. I tell people all the time, we don't have all the answers. My email is real simple. If you want to send me an email with thoughts or ideas, suggestions, mcoyle@umn.edu. That doesn't go to an administrative assistant. That comes straight to me. But we want your ideas. We want your thoughts. What can we do to make it better for you when you come to the games, when you buy a ticket, when you make a gift? All those things have an impact on our program and what we're trying to do long term. So again, just really grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you. And this is where I have my call to action. You don't have to sponsor. You don't have to make a gift. But what I do need you to do is simply this. I need all of you to be advocates for our program. I wish you could meet our student athletes. We have some of the nicest, brightest young men and women, and they are so proud to put on that Minnesota jersey and represent all of you. And I wish you could tell, and I hope that you tell people, hey, you know what? They're doing it right academically. They're doing it right athletically, and they're trying really, really hard to make all of you proud. And again, we've got great leaders, and finally, your investment. And how can you invest? You buy a ticket. You come to events like this. You watch us on TV. You decide to make a gift to the Golden Gopher Fund. Those all have an impact. I hope you know how much it impacts our kids, the impact it has in our program. You know, and I tell people all the time, I'm in the business of dreams. I'm around student athletes who dreamed of competing at the highest level. I'm around coaches who dreamed of coaching at the highest level. And they can do that because people like you buy a ticket, you make a gift, you come to our events. And again, I hope you know how proud we are and how thankful we are for your support, but how proud we are to represent not only this great institution in this community, but the state, because we do take great pride when we put that jersey on. So with that, I am more than happy to take any questions, and I said, we'll always be honest. If I'm misleading you, my lip will start to quiver. So fire away with the easy questions.
I got an easy one. My son was fortunate enough to wrestle with Bobby and Gabe Stevenson, getting the #1 ranked wrestler in the country, and arguably ever since maybe Cal Sanderson could be maybe the best wrestler ever. We'll see how it plays out. What does that do to your program? Gets a lot of good feedback. Like we're getting, it could be in any sport. What does that do for the U of M, for the credibility?
Well, Gabe is obviously a phenomenal young man. I had a chance to see him in the nutrition center last week, and you shake his hand and it comes up to my elbow when he shakes your hand with his fingers. But, I remember when I was at Kentucky spending time around Coach Calipari on the basketball team. Again, worked very closely with that program. And I remember one time he talked about you become a really, really good coach when you have the best student athletes. And when you get somebody of that caliber who's ranked #1 in the country, it just gives you credibility. You start to get more students that compete at that high level. And recruiting is the backbone of our program. Our goal is when you get the top student athletes that can come in, and we talk to our coaches all the time, we want to make sure that we bring people to our campus who can compete academically on our campus and who can compete athletically. And at the end of the day, I will get fired at the University of Minnesota if we don't win. Right? I mean, I get that. We need to win at a high level. That's why we do this. But academically, we want to do it the right way too. But when you get those top kids like that, it's transformational for your program. If you look at our recruiting classes for wrestling, they've been off the charts the past few years. We have a brand new wrestling center that just opened up, Athletes Village. Coach Eggum's done a phenomenal job following Coach Robinson and keeping that program building forward. So we feel we were going in the right direction with that program. But a great question. Got to get the kids. Yes.
With a focus on kids and students, to the big athletes and the revenue sports, what's the record for those that were not drafted by a pro team?
What do you mean by record? How many go on to play professionally? Or?
No, the kids. I'm focusing on the kids who were not drafted. What's the record on them? Where do they go? Are they successful?
Yeah, I got you. So. In our Athletes Village, it's our Land O'Lakes Center of Excellence. And there we feel very blessed with all the Fortune 500 companies here in the Twin Cities. When we recruit student athletes, like when we're recruiting Gabe and other student athletes to come to our campus, we make it very clear that we want you to come for 4 years, but you'll stay for 40. And we feel like it's our opportunity to help them find job placements once they graduate from our program. So we do everything we can from resume writing, financial literacy, all those type of skills. So when they leave our institution, they've got that world-class education, they've competed at a high level, but we've also worked with them through our leadership center. So we've had many CEOs, our business leaders come and talk to our student athletes. Scott Wine from Polaris, for example, came and spoke to our student athletes and staff. So we try to do those leadership things to prepare them for the next stage. And again, we've been very successful, and we've had a lot of success with recruits because their families understand that there's so many opportunities here once they get done with school to stay in this part of the country with all the Fortune 500, with all the vibrant business community. So it's a huge advantage for us with our recruiting structure. Yes, sir. Yeah.
During my adult lifetime, our country and my family have been blessed to see these opportunities for women come, both participation and leadership through sports. But it seems to me that, Sid Hartman said it, I mean, everybody kind of can see it, that one of the real big asymmetries is that there is no women's program comparable to college football. And as a result, whether it's not having a D1 men's soccer program in Minnesota, or a baseball team in Wisconsin, or my sport of wrestling is pretty good in the Big Ten, but diminishing around the country. Is there any way that the NCAA is looking at it such that they could, give those participation opportunities for men's teams, recognizing that football has so many larger numbers of athletes than any other sport, men's or women's?
Yeah, it's a great question with respect to the number of opportunities for men's and women's sports and so forth. And obviously Title IX has a huge impact on what we do day to day, and we're very proud with our success of our women programs. And I'm not sure I can answer your question in terms of providing the right answer. What I can tell you at the University of Minnesota, we feel it's very, very important that we match our student population or our state population. So if you see sports like lacrosse, men's soccer, some of those sports that are really starting to take off and explore, I think that puts pressure on us to make sure we review our sport offerings and are we providing sports that match what the population is matching. Obviously our goal is if there's a young man or a young woman who competes at a high level in high school at the state of Minnesota, we want to keep them in Minnesota. But we have to make sure that we offer the sports that they compete in. And I can tell you that's something that we continually look at and evaluate as we go through our process each day. But it's a great question, yeah. Yep, and then I'll get you, sir. Yeah.
I have a comment and a question. The comment is I took my 7-year-old to a Gopher football game, and we absolutely loved it. The level of professionalism was very, very high, much higher than I had anticipated, so it was an amazingly good time. The Super Bowl was at the Mercedes Stadium, and they touted family-friendly pricing. So my question is, has there been conversations around you whether or not there would be an initiative to push towards family-friendly pricing for tickets, for concessions, things of that nature?
Yeah, so what we've done at our place, if you look at attendance and just talk about football specifically, since you talked about coming to TCF Bank Stadium, attendance across the country in college football is dropping. And so it's on us, and Mark has heard me say this 100 times because Mark's on an oversight committee that I talk to, it's on us to earn people back. And you earn people back by looking at your pricing. You earn people back by offering flexibility. My wife and I, we have 3 children. And I think my wife made it to 2 or 3 games this past year between their schedules, full games. She's able to get to all the games, but full games in terms of trying to balance that. So we need to do a better job of being more creative with our pricing, from the concession stand, from the parking, to the family pack that we create, to a mini season ticket plan, some of those type of plans to get people that come back to our games. And I think if you look, we've been very creative, but we need to continue to grow and attract people back to our games. So those are things that we always look at in terms of trying to get people, you know, I remind people, I know a lot of you are in business and you're business leaders. So 25 programs, we have 3 that generate revenue. Right? So we have football, men's basketball, and men's hockey that generate revenue. So we talk a lot about selling tickets and getting people to buy season tickets, mini game plans, etc. for those 3 sports, because we can use that revenue to support all 22 other programs. So it's very important for us to be creative and to get insight and comments from people like you to be creative in how we do those things.
So you talked about athletic excellence, I think it was, and that to me kind of equates to winning.
Yes.
So how do you balance your philosophy that you have to win, you know, in order to be successful with where you're currently at, right? So the Minnesota football team hasn't won since a really long time. You've got this great kind of young coach, but and the same thing might apply to basketball. Now I know Tino wasn't your pick; it was kind of predates you. But how long do these guys get before, you know, if they're not winning, if they're not ranked nationally or at the top of the Big Ten? How do you kind of balance all that when you really want to be winners?
Yeah, so a great question, and I wish I had a simple answer for you. You know,
I didn't expect it to be simple.
Yeah, you know, again, I will not shy away from we want to win, all right? And I think it's very important, and there's no reason why you cannot win at Minnesota. We have no excuses. And you know, when I was hired at Minnesota, I went to my first set of Big Ten meetings, and I had a chance to talk to some different athletic directors there. And they just talk about all the special things that go on up here. And I feel like we're getting the right people in place in terms of trying to win at a high level. But what I look at winning is, I look at a couple factors. First, obviously, look at the on-field performance. Are we making a difference on the field? You know, whether it be swimming, football, basketball, hockey, tennis, are we making a difference there? The second thing we look at is academically. You know, again, I truly feel it's our job to make sure we get these kids a degree. And I wish I could tell you that Mark Coyle did this, but this has been in place a long, long time. This academic tradition and history at the University of Minnesota, they've had phenomenal semesters and years for a long, long time. It's just part of who we are. But I look at academically, how does the coach do that? And then the third thing I look at is, do we want to be around those people? I mean, you all work incredibly hard. We work incredibly hard. And I want to make sure it's the right fit for us and what we're trying to do. And when I talk about, you know, we will always be focused on the student athlete. And if you take away anything from my talk today, I hope you take away one thing. We are about providing a first-class experience for our student athletes academically, athletically, and socially. If we don't do that, we fail. And so when I look at our coaches, are we doing it the right way academically? Socially, are we doing it the right way? And athletically, are we competing at a high level? That's how I kind of evaluate coaches and how we make decisions. Yes, ma'am.
Although I know that there's been some concern with regard to Title IX about what I'm going to ask, but I'm just curious, what is the University of Minnesota looking into this new, to me it seems new, this e-sport phenomenon that's going on?
Yeah, great question. So the e-sports, how many people are familiar with e-sports? It's my man Max. Max has got it. That's why you couldn't get your work done, Max. You're doing e-sports stuff. But yeah, so esports is electronic sports, esports. And so I've got, my wife and I, we have a daughter, Gracie, and we have 2 boys, Nicholas and Benjamin. If you came home to my house on Saturday afternoon, my 2 boys are not watching a college basketball game. They're watching esports. They're watching other people play video games. They're trying to play video games. And this is an emerging sport. A couple schools in the Pac-12 have added scholarships for esports. We are working closely with Maggie Tiles, who is our VP of Student Affairs, about our esports program on campus. We actually provide a training area for our esports people inside Ritter Arena where they can come in and train, and they hook up their rigs. I believe, Max, is that the right terminology? The computer screen and everything to play these games. We've hosted a couple esports events in TCF Bank Stadium and the DQ Club, so we're trying to embrace it. I had a chance this past year when we played Ohio State in football. I had a chance to visit with their esports people and look what they're doing at Ohio State, because you at Normandale trying to attract students to come to your institution, right? You want to provide these clubs and these opportunities, and so I can tell you a lot of our peers are starting to do this. So you will hear more and more about esports, I promise you, because it is exploding. It is exploding. Yes, sir, and then I'll get you. Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming, and thanks for the great work you're doing at the U. We really appreciate it. Lately, there's been a lot of athletes that have been going through the transfer process, whether it's our softball player that transferred. And right now, we have a point guard from Pittsburgh that transferred in that didn't get clearance to play this year. Then I read that a quarterback from Georgia transfers and gets in immediately cleared at Ohio State. And I'm wondering what the U's involvement is with the NCAA around that whole process, and what type of transparency are you seeing from the NCAA regarding what seems to be an unlevel playing field?
Yes, so the transfer, it's a very interesting phenomenon in our sport right now, in intercollegiate athletics. And excuse me, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was down in Orlando at the NCAA convention. And these are one of the items we talked about, because what they have is a transfer portal. And so all these student athletes, if they're not getting enough playing time, if something's not working, they want to transfer right away and go play elsewhere right away. And there's been some challenges because some student athletes are being cleared to play right away, and other student athletes aren't being cleared to play right away. And so that's what creates some of the confusion. And what I can tell you what Minnesota's role is, as part of the Big Ten, we have our conversations with our peers in the Big Ten and the Big Ten Conference Office, and then we have an opportunity to share those opinions and those thoughts when we go to the NCAA convention each year and to have those conversations. And the NCAA put together a transfer working group. Gary Barta, who is the athletic director of the University of Iowa, was on that working group, and he would provide us with updates and how we can do things. And I can tell you it's something that continues to evolve. It's something that we need to pay attention to, because you don't want kids, you spend a lot of time recruiting a young man or a young woman to come to your institution, and you don't want them to get to your institution and after 2 weeks say, yeah, it's cold in Minnesota. I want to go, I'm going to transfer. And they can leave right away, right? I mean, think about the time, the energy invested from the institution, but also think about the time and the energy invested by that recruit to come, and then now they've got to move to someplace else. So what I can tell you is that we continually talk about it. I'll be in Big Ten meetings next week in Chicago. I promise you that will be on our agenda to continue to talk about how do we get our arms around the number of transfers. How do we make it more transparent so the public understands why this individual's cleared, while this individual's not cleared? So there's still much work to be doing in that area. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the $121 million budget for the year. What percentage of that comes from donor-supplied funds, and what is the impact now on the passing of Dick Ames?
Yeah,
he's probably one of the biggest donors.
Yeah, well, first off, Dick, Ames Construction, those people are so phenomenal to our program, and was obviously very sad. I had a chance to attend a service on Friday. But what I talk about, and I'll go quickly because I see you standing, I'll go quickly here. So no matter what athletic department you're talking about, if it's Minnesota, Boise State, Syracuse, Kentucky, you name it, we all have basically the same revenue streams. You have your fundraising, which is what you're talking about. That's a big part of what we do each year. And we've had record fundraising the past few years with Athletes Village and some of our things. We're doing over $35 million a year in fundraising, all right? We also have ticket sales. That's obviously a big part. When I talk about ticket sales, for all of our sports, again, the football, the basketball, the men's hockey, but we sell tickets for volleyball, soccer, baseball, softball. We have success selling tickets there. The third bucket of revenue is your Big Ten and your NCAA distribution. That's your TV money and your from the Big Ten network, and then your NCAA money, March Madness. So when a Big Ten team plays in March Madness, we all get a cut of that TV money. And then the final bucket that you have is your multimedia rights agreement, your Learfield, your Nike, your apparel deals, and those type of things. So we all have very similar revenue streams. The two that we control are fundraising and ticket sales. So obviously the more money we raise, the more money we can spend for our student athletes. And I'll end with this. I heard a line a long time ago, and I never forgot it, that money's not the most important thing in college athletics, but it's right up there with oxygen. You need it. So listen, I really enjoyed speaking with you. We appreciate your support, and go Gophers.